Are you thinking about making a move to the Franklin, Tennessee area and you're trying to get acquainted with the area? How far is it from downtown or the airport? What about areas like Brentwood or Arrington or College Grove? What's right for you? Well, if you are trying to get those answers, then you've come to the right place, because in today's video, we're going to be diving into the map, talking about distances, talking about the types of real estate that you can find in these various areas. So we're diving into everything that you need to know, all of that coming up and more in today's video. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin Martin and I'm a local Nashville real estate agent, founder of the Caitlin Martin team, powered by Weikert Realtors, the Andrews Group. I specialize in helping, we specialize in helping out-of-staters looking to relocate to the Middle Tennessee area, with Williamson County in particular being one of our specialties. So in today's video, we're going to be diving into everything that you need to know if you're thinking about making a move to the Middle Tennessee area. One thing that I hear from folks when we are first chatting is they're talking about like, well, I've seen it on a map, but like, I don't know what the true distances look like. So we're going to just be talking about our area, what it is that you need to know, plus, like I said, the various types of housing, and we're also going to be diving into the average sales price point in these various communities. So let's go ahead and dive on in. So big thing to know, we are going to be talking about Williamson County. So if you are just starting your research and you're trying to get acquainted of, different counties versus what's in what county, so let's first talk about that. So if you're looking at the heart of Nashville, Nashville itself is going to be in Davidson County. And so if you look at a map and you go down Interstate 65, where you reach Brentwood, that's going to be the start of Williamson County. So Williamson County is home to Brentwood, Nolensville, Franklin, Arrington, College Grove, Thompson Station, parts of Spring Hill, and also the Fairview area. So that is everything that's encompassed within Williamson County. A couple of things to know about Williamson County. It is the most expensive county within the state of Tennessee. Another thing to know about Williamson County is, because I know that there's a lot of headlines, the news likes to throw out things like recession, and they do a lot of fear mongering when it comes to real estate. Well, something to know, Williamson County fared the best out of all counties within Tennessee back in the crash of '08. And it's things like the publicly rated school scores that help the Williamson County area to not only retain its value or maintain the value, but to also continue for home values to appreciate each and every year. It continues to be a very popular relocation destination, with one of the reasons being the publicly rated school scores. Also, Williamson County has a really great job economy with low employment numbers. We have seen several companies relocate their headquarters here, some to the Nashville area, but others have also moved inside of the Williamson County area outside of Franklin. So there's a lot to love about Franklin. Also, people love the values and the lifestyle that they are afforded inside of Williamson County. So that's why we continue to see folks decide to call Williamson County home. So what else do you need to know about these communities? Well, let's talk about distances. Let's actually dive into the map and get a good idea of just where things are in relation to one another. Now, another thing to keep in mind, even if you don't have school-age children, maybe your kids are already grown and out of the house, it is still something though to know, because it is a reason why people continue to flock to Williamson County, because that helps maintain your home value and also appreciate it year over year. So these are all things to consider. Another reason why we're seeing people relocate to the Middle Tennessee area, we have no state income tax. We have low property taxes. We're actually the third least taxed state in the country, behind Alaska and Wyoming. We also have no personal property tax. So things like boats, RVs, cars, you are not being taxed additionally on those like you can be in other places. In fact, we actually had clients relocate here last year because they were able to save thousands of dollars by not paying personal property tax where they were moving from. So the money piece is a huge reason why people continue to relocate here, because you just get to keep more money in your own pocket. So these are all reasons. Plus, again, it's the lifestyle. It's the entrepreneurial, creative spirit that Nashville holds. I mean, Nashville, yes, it's Music City. Folks move here in pursuit of their dream of being a country music artist. But at the same time, there's also a really great community. And there's just this like creative spirit within the air here where folks want to help lift up others, whether you're starting your own business or whether you're chasing down a new dream. Like, this feels almost like it's the city of dreams, and people move here and they're able to accomplish so much. And really and truly, Nashville is great because it affords you the opportunity where you may not have it in other smaller cities across the US. You know, you get opportunities like big cities like in LA or New York without having to live in those areas. So you can get more of a small town feel, but with big city perks and amenities. So now that we've tackled that, let's dive into the map. Let's talk about the distances and what you need to know about these various areas so you can start to figure out what's going to be the best fit for you and your family. Okay, so we are first going to start taking a look at Williamson County. So you can see with this red line here, this is what denotes Williamson County. A couple of things to know. So yes, most of Brentwood is going to fall within Williamson County. There are a few sliver of addresses that are Brentwood, but they fall into the Davidson County side. But the majority of Brentwood is going to be in Williamson County. Same with Nolensville. Nolensville, there's actually a neighborhood or two that actually split the line where half of it's Davidson, half of it's Williamson County, and that's important to know if school zones are important to you when you're searching. And then same thing for Spring Hill down here that you can see. It does split the Williamson County, Maury County line, and the neighborhoods that split the line, there's actually about $100,000 difference between the exact same house if it's in Williamson versus Maury. And part of that is because once you go into Maury County, the publicly rated school scores are fairly different from the Williamson County scores. So that is something to keep in mind. But I wanted to first start by giving you an idea of just what Williamson County looked like when you're taking a look at a map. So first, let's start here with Brentwood. So Brentwood, you're only going to be about 15-20 minutes from getting into downtown Nashville. One of the reasons that folks love Brentwood is because of the close proximity to getting into downtown and everything that you get to enjoy within downtown. At the same time, you're about 20-25 minutes from the airport, which makes it really nice and convenient, especially if you have to commute for work. Now, when it comes to Brentwood, the most prevalent type of housing you're going to find is going to be single family homes. Generally, they're going to be an established neighborhood on larger lots. So that is something to keep in mind. You can find the occasional townhouse within a few communities, but generally you're looking at larger homes, typically around that 3,000, 4,000 plus square footage. And again, you're going to be on a little bit of a larger lot, closer to half an acre or more, depending on the community that you're in. You also have a lot of mature trees. You know, when they were developing Brentwood, they didn't go and mow down every single tree like sometimes you can see in newer communities. They really wanted to preserve the beauty of the surroundings. So Brentwood just has this really great feel to it. When we're looking at average price point, the average sales price in Brentwood as of May of 2025 was 1.656. So that's what it was. Again, that's taking into consideration resales. Now, if you're interested in new construction, getting into a new construction home in Brentwood is going to be tough to get in under the 3 million mark. So keep that in mind. There are a few opportunities in the mid twos to like up to 3, but most of your opportunity for new construction in Brentwood is going to be at 3 million and above. So that's something to keep in mind. Now in Franklin, when it comes to housing, you're typically looking at single family homes. There are some communities with townhomes in them, and there are some condo communities too. However, again, the most prevalent type of housing is going to be single family homes. However, in Franklin, you're typically going to find more housing that's going to be on that like quarter of an acre lot versus the larger lots, but that doesn't mean there's not opportunity for larger lots. It's just that is what is most common. A couple of other things to know about Franklin. All of this building that you see here along Interstate 65, this is going to be the Cool Springs area. So in Cool Springs, you have the Cool Springs Mall, you have your Home Depot, your Lowe's, your furniture stores, your banks, your grocery stores. You've got, of course, all of your retail shops. So basically, almost anything you can want, you're going to find here within the Cool Springs area. That is just part of what makes Franklin really nice and convenient. Now, something to note here with Brentwood is going to be in terms of your shopping. So there is an area called the Brentwood Hill Center, which is going to be located right here where the cursor is. This is where you're going to find a lot of your shops, retail, grocery stores, restaurants, things like that, whether it's chain restaurant or mom and pop type restaurants. That is going to be located there in the Brentwood Hill Center. So one of the things that I like to tell folks about Williamson County is typically, no matter where you are, unless you're intentionally trying to be further out, unless you're trying to be intentionally further out, you're going to not be that far from grocery stores or those everyday conveniences that you're used to. So that's what makes it really nice. So you do have the Hill Center there in Brentwood. So you do have the Cool Springs area. However, if you go further south in Franklin, because it does continue down, when you actually get off here at the Goose Creek bypass, which is further south on Interstate 65, you're going to find the Berry Farms area. So if you are going to live in a community, say if you're going to live over here in College Grove or Arrington, Berry Farms is good to know because that's generally going to be your closest grocery store, something around that 12 to 15 minute mark, depending on where you are. But just know that, again, like I said, wherever you are in Williamson County, typically your grocery store is not going to be that far away. Now, when we look at this red dotted outline of Franklin, it's a little hard to tell on this map, but overall, I think you can typically see it a little bit better if I zoom out. But as you can see, most of Franklin is going to exist on the west side of 65. There are still neighborhoods and communities on the right, but if you're just trying to get an idea and the sense of Franklin, most of Franklin is going to be located there on the west side of 65, with, of course, some of it coming across the interstate. Now, when it comes to things like getting into downtown Nashville, so from Franklin up into Nashville, you're looking at about that 30-minute mark. Now, there is a community in Franklin over here towards the west side. That community is called West Haven. It's a very popular neighborhood. I actually have a couple videos on West Haven. This is going to be a master planned community, homes on smaller lots, but it's got shops, retail, it's got its own grocery store, it's a golf course community, also golf cart, because that's how a lot of folks like to get around, multiple pools, great community. The reason why I mention it is because if you live on that further side of Franklin, to get to downtown Nashville, you're looking at closer to that 40 to 45 minute mark, and same thing for getting over to the airport. So again, if you travel a lot, whether it's for work or for pleasure, if you live further on the west side of Franklin, it can take a little bit longer to get to the airport. And then when we're looking at, say, the relationship from Franklin to Brentwood, you're looking at about 15 minutes, just depending on where you are. Again, I know a lot of times when you're looking at a map, it can be kind of hard to judge what the distance is and it looks super close, but generally, depending on where you're going, you're looking at around that like 12 to 15 minute mark getting from Brentwood into Franklin. And the nice thing to know, if Interstate 65 is backed up, there are plenty of back roads from Brentwood into Franklin to get you there. So you've got multiple ways to get around, not just the interstate. And then last thing to know about Franklin. So when we're talking about average price point, as of May 2025, the average price point for a single family home in Franklin was right at that 1.225 million mark. Now, if you're looking at new construction, you're right about that 1,530,000 mark. Of course, you got variations in there, but again, these are just a great general idea of where home prices are landing if you're looking in these different areas. Okay, next up is going to be Nolensville. So if I zoom out here, you can see Nolensville in the red. If I zoom out, you can see Nolensville is almost in between Interstate 24 and Interstate 65. So that is important to know, because if you're somebody that likes to be able to quickly jump on the interstate, you're going to be about 10 to 12 minutes either way from getting on the interstate when you're in Nolensville. Another great thing, kind of like Franklin, there are several back roads that run from Nolensville into Franklin or Nolensville into Brentwood. You're typically, to get from Nolensville to Brentwood or Nolensville to Franklin, you're generally looking something around that 20-minute mark, just depending on where you are. Of course, part of Brentwood does butt up to Nolensville, also same with Franklin. So because of that, you could be right there, just depending on where you are. But overall, that's something to know. Nolensville has exploded in popularity over the last last 10 years because Nolensville, like I said, most of it's inside of Williamson County. So folks realized that they could move to Nolensville and get the Williamson County schools. However, they could get it at a better price point. Now, within Nolensville, we've seen a lot of rapid growth, especially over the last 5 to 7 years, with several new communities coming up within Nolensville. So if we're talking about what the average price point is, so in Franklin, the average sales price point as of May 2025 for a single family home was sitting right at $1,074,000, whereas new construction was sitting at $850,000 roughly. Nolensville actually has a really great new master plan community. So we've talked about West Haven. If that sounds interesting to you, but you're maybe interested in the Nolensville community, they are bringing a new one called Farrington. I've done 2 videos on that. I will link them up above for you if you want to check those out. That's going to be a really great community, one to keep your eye on. So they are bringing a new master plan community because in Nolensville, you're going to typically get mostly established neighborhoods. You certainly have some luxury neighborhoods within the Nolensville area, one of them being, say, Bennington. There's also the Enclave at Dove Lake. Farrington's coming. But Nolensville is great. It's very family oriented. It's not an area that's going to have a nightlife. So, you'd certainly along Nolensville Road, you're going to have more shops, retail restaurants coming, more grocery stores are coming. So you do have everything that you need essentially within Nolensville, but yet you're only 20 to 30 minutes, depending on where you are within Nolensville and get terms of getting into like places like Cool Springs or getting into downtown Franklin, which can, be closer to that 30-minute mark, but you still have that great accessibility. You can get there through mostly back roads, which is wonderful, especially if there tends to be traffic, because we certainly do deal with traffic. But Nolensville, so you have downtown Franklin. Downtown Franklin is that really charming, feels like you stepped back into a Hallmark movie feel, whereas downtown Nolensville is going to be more of that country feel. It's the more rural feel. They've got a feed mill as a part of their little downtown Nolensville area. Nolensville is also really, really beautiful because it's going to be less congested housing wise, and you have these insanely beautiful views of the rolling hills. So Nolensville, if that is speaking to you, that is a great area to explore because, Nolensville just continues to grow. They're continuing to bring more amenities to the area, which makes it really nice. The only, kind of downside in terms of, general accessibility is that, your nearest Target's going to be about 15-20 minutes away, but you still have grocery stores, you still have other shopping, you still have retail, your everyday amenities there along Nolensville Road. When it comes to getting into downtown, you're 30 to 40 minutes depending on traffic, and to get to the airport, you're really looking at about 30 minutes. You have a couple of back ways into the airport, which is really nice. So again, if you're somebody that travels, Nolensville is also really convenient in terms of getting to the airport. Okay, up next is going to be Arrington. So again, you're right here. You can see College Grove. We're going to talk about College Grove next. Let's see. So up next is Arrington. Next, we're going to talk about College Grove. But as you can see, Arrington is located kind of in the middle between Franklin and Nolensville. It's just a little bit further south as you get closer to this 840 interstate here. So Arrington is going to be about 15-20 minutes. It's going to, let's see. So Arrington's going to be about 20 minutes from Nolensville as you make your way through here. Sometimes it'll send you down Nolensville Road to 840 up into Arrington. Again, you're about 15 minutes from Arrington, the neighborhoods in Arrington, to get over to that Berry Farms community that we talked about, where there's a Publix grocery store. Arrington is not going to have its own shops and restaurants. Arrington is going to be for someone who is looking to feel a little bit more removed. Arrington is a beautiful area. It's just quiet. So you're not going to have your own grocery store within Arrington right now. You don't have your own shops, restaurants, retail, things like that within Arrington. This is going to be neighborhoods. You do have a gated community called King's Chapel that a lot of people are really drawn to because King Chapel, it's beautiful, set amongst the rolling hills, mature trees, beautiful luxury homes, normally starting around that 1.2, 1.4 price range. So you have Arrington, which is really nice. Also, Arrington is known for Arrington Vineyards, which Arrington Vineyards is going to be located just on the south side here of Interstate 840. So that's something to keep in mind. But when it comes to Arrington, you do have, it is the heart of Arrington is going to be off of Murfreesboro Road, which Murfreesboro Road, as you can kind of see from this map, this is what this road is here. That does take you right on into Franklin. But again, Arrington, again, no nightlife, no grocery stores of its own. But again, you're about 12 to 15 minutes away from a couple of, you have the grocery store in McKay's Mill. You also have Berry Farms that we discussed in Franklin. So you do have them. It's just going to be, it's not going to be a 5-minute drive. It's going to be a little bit longer than that. Now, when it comes to Arrington, the average sales price point is going to be right at 1.337 million. And then new construction is going to be sitting at about that $950,000 range. It does vary a little bit because in Arrington, you can certainly get homes. They're building a couple of new communities in Arrington that overlook the rolling hills, and it's kind of near Arrington Vineyard. So you do have the ability to get in below $1 million, but a lot of times you're looking at between that like 1 to 1.5. Now, if you were looking in like neighborhoods like the King's Chapel that we talked about, you do start more around that 1.2 to 1.4 range, and then home prices go up over 2 million because that neighborhood is one where they are continuing to build. They're actually in their final phase of development, whereas some homes have been there for about 10 years. Others are being built, and the newer construction is going to be obviously a little bit pricier. And so another community in Arrington, Hardyman Springs. So these are all things to keep in mind. Arrington, again, it's really beautiful. When it comes to getting into downtown, you're about 37 minutes away from downtown Nashville, and the airport, you're around that 45-minute range. So it really, if those kinds of distances don't bother you, then that is, this is definitely an area if you're looking for more of that like peace and serenity, but still beautiful home. Arrington is a great option. Okay, up next, like I said, we are in College Grove. So we moved from Arrington down to College Grove. This is really going to be like 10 minutes or less apart. College Grove, when it comes to getting into downtown Franklin, you're looking at about that 20-minute mark, just depending on where you are in College Grove. Now, College Grove, the two most well-known neighborhoods within College Grove are going to be The Grove and Troubadour. Both are gated private golf communities in the area. So that's what it's most known for, but there are still some other beautiful communities, including Falls Grove, that are within College Grove. They're just not gated communities. So when we're looking at price point in College Grove, the average sales price point is going to be $2.25 million, with new construction being just a little over $2 million. It's $2,036,000. And it's because of these gated communities. Now you can get into College Grove for under $1 million. Neighborhoods like McDaniel's Farms, or also, neighborhoods like McDaniel's Farms or also Falls Grove are communities within College Grove that offer an entry price point that's going to be at or below $1 million. But because you have these two larger gated communities, that is what is driving up the price point. Also, I had someone about a year ago, Now, last year, I did have a client ask about College Grove. Why was the average sales price higher than other parts of Williamson County? And ultimately, the answer comes down to lifestyle. Folks are buying the lifestyle in these gated communities. Yes, you can get into College Grove without being in the gated communities, but these are larger communities with plenty of home sales taking place. And so those are, ultimately, if you're going to College Grove, you're buying into the lifestyle of College Grove, which both communities have great amenities. I've covered that in other videos. If you want to check that out, I will also link that up above. But when it comes to distances, so College Grove, we've already talked about like kind of distance into Franklin, but if we're looking at distance into downtown, you're really looking at that 45 to 50 minute range. And then to get into to get over to the airport. Now, when it comes to distances for College Grove, I switched over the map so you can see there's actually two options for you to take. So you're really around that like 42 to 52 minute range, depending on whether you head east and up 24 or whether you head over to 65 and head up into the airport, because the airport is going to be located right over here. It's just east of downtown Nashville. Now, if you're in Troubadour, they do have a concierge shuttle that can get you to and from the airport, or can even take you and your friends up into Nashville while you have a fun night out. So those are all things to keep in mind. So really in College Grove, even though you're gonna be a little bit further away from places like downtown or the airport, it is still important to keep in mind that, you know, ultimately folks are drawn to the area. It's beautiful. And really most of the time they're buying the lifestyles that these gated communities offer. Okay, up next is Thompson Station. So Thompson Station, if we zoom out the map, you can see the outline in red. So Thompson Station is going to be directly south of Franklin. Thompson Station, you're really going to be around that like 10 to 20 minute range of getting into Franklin, depending on where you're going, whether it's getting into the Berry Farms community that we've talked about, or whether it's getting into downtown Franklin. You're really looking, you know, like I said, 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on where you are. So Thompson Station is an area where you're going to find established communities, and at the same time, you also have the opportunity to get homes and neighborhoods that are going to be on larger lots. And you also have the ability to get a beautiful home on plenty of acreage. So you kind of can get a little bit of anything in Thompson Station. It's still within Williamson County, obviously. Now, if we're looking at things like the average sales price in Thompson Station, you're looking at $1,063,000. Whereas new construction, because there has been a lot of building within Thompson Station over the last couple of years, new construction is going to run you around that average price point of $1.1 million. Drees has been building a lot in Thompson Station. There has been a lot of new construction happening in Thompson Station. You can get an established home, but there's been a lot of really beautiful new communities as well. So again, with Thompson Station, more of the established communities, you're looking at around that quarter to third of an acre, whereas you also have the opportunity that if you want a home on acreage, I actually had a client purchase a home on 15 acres in Thompson Station. And the nice thing about Thompson Station is that while, again, it doesn't have its like own huge centralized hub to get either into Spring Hill or up into Nashville for things like grocery stores, you're really within like a 10 to 15 minute range. So it's still really convenient. Also, right next to Thompson Station is going to be the first bank amphitheater, which is where Greystone Quarry, the wedding venue, is, but also they've created an amphitheater on property where it's kind of like Red Rocks. I mean, you're truly within the stoned quarry. It's a really cool venue. They've worked really hard over the last couple of years to perfect parking, because that was kind of one of the one like downfall of it. But they worked really hard. That is now running more like a well-oiled machine, but it's a really cool place to get to go and enjoy a concert, especially in the summertime. Now, when it comes to Thompson Station, if you're getting up into the airport, you can see it's around that 48-minute mark. Of course, there's a bit of traffic, which is, you know, something that Nashville's dealing with more let's see. Now, of course, there's like more traffic that we're dealing with as folks have moved here. So that is something to keep in mind, but it is still, from what I understand, not as bad as say Chicago or LA. But that's, again, this is where Thompson Station's going to be located. Not quite as far south as Spring Hill, but you're going to be around that 40 to 50 minute mark getting to the airport. And same for getting into downtown Nashville. Okay, we are almost done. We're going to talk about Spring Hill, Fairview, and then we are out of here. So with Spring Hill, this is another community that I told you about that does split the Williamson County line with Maury County. So if school zones are important to you, keep that in mind. Folks have been drawn to the Spring Hill area just because when you look at the average price point in Spring Hill, it's sitting at $616,000. $700,000, with new construction running at $740,000-ish. So you do have that opportunity. People want to be within Williamson County at a more affordable price point. They're looking at the Spring Hill area. Now, because you're a little bit further south in the Spring Hill area, you are, as you can see, looking at more of like 45 to 50 minute commute to the airport. Same getting into downtown Nashville. Now, that can be a little bit less depending on when you go, if there's rush hour traffic. So these are all things to keep in mind. Spring Hill into Franklin, you're looking at around that 20-minute mark. So these are all things that you want to keep in mind if you're trying to explore the area, figure out what's important to you. In Spring Hill, you do have your own hub in terms of shopping and restaurants. So all along this major road here, this is where, I mean, there's a Target right there, but this is where most of your shopping and everything is going to be. So again, it is going to be super convenient if you are also interested in Thompson Station. So these are all things to keep in mind if you're trying to decide where you want to be. Okay, and then up last is going to be Fairview. So Fairview, out of all of the places within Williamson County, this one is going to be the one that is the most different from the rest of the county. So even though each place that we talked about, Franklin, Brentwood, Thompson Station, Arrington, Nolensville, all of that, even though they all, once you're in them, have their own distinct styles, the way the look of the housing, Fairview is going to be the one where it's going to lack the most cohesion. There are new builds happening within Fairview that are going to have more of a cohesive look, but generally within Fairview is going to be far more rural than the rest of the area. And typically you're going to find, housing, but there's going to be a lack of cohesion in terms of the style of Fairview. Another thing to know, we've talked about Williamson County school scores. Fairview County schools, or not Fairview. Fairview school scores tend to be some of the lowest in Williamson County. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Now, when it comes to average sales price point, you're looking at about that $787,000 mark for your average sales price point within Fairview. And then when it comes to taking a look at the distances to things like the airport or downtown Nashville, as you can see, yes, there's rush hour traffic right now as it's updating in live time. So you're looking at, generally, you're going to be around that 40-minute mark or so into the airport or downtown. But as you can see with rush hour, you're looking at more than an hour. So if you commute for work, again, something to keep in mind. So as we wrap this up, just wanted to give you a little bit more context about the area. Yes, we've talked about Williamson County, but as we take a look at this map, again, obviously right there is Nashville, but when you're looking at some of these other places, another one that I get asked about frequently is Murfreesboro. So Murfreesboro is down Interstate 24. And in my own personal opinion, I think Interstate 24 is the worst out of the interstates that we deal with here in the Middle Tennessee area. So Murfreesboro, we've actually had clients that moved to Murfreesboro and worked in Nashville. And if you're commuting during rush hour, if you're commuting during rush hour for our clients, that commute was about an hour and a half in rush hour traffic. Now, without traffic, you can get into Murfreesboro, or from Nashville to Murfreesboro, or vice versa. You can get in about 30 minutes. But it's the rush hour traffic, and yes, you can deal with it on Interstate 65 as well. But and even Interstate 40, say coming in from areas like Mount Juliet, which is another one that we get asked about. Mount Juliet into Nashville is about 25, 30 minutes, depending on traffic. So these are all things to keep in mind. Franklin to Murfreesboro, you're around 30 minutes. Mount Juliet to Murfreesboro, you're looking at 40 minutes. So I hope that in going over the map and the kind of housing you can get, I hope this was helpful in just starting to give you a concept of where it is that you might want to be. Again, if we're looking at things to know about Nashville, you do have the airport that's going to be just east. That is our B&A airport. That's where you're going to come in when you come to visit. And again, to get from B&A into Williamson County, to get into Brentwood, Nolensville, all of that, you're looking at 20, 30, worst case scenario, you're looking at around 50 minutes, depending on where you're going. But most prevalently, the folks that come in, you stay in Brentwood or Franklin. It's pretty easy between that 20 to 30-minute mark, getting from the airport to where you're staying. And then, of course, getting from those areas into downtown, you're looking at that 15 to 30-minute mark, just depending on where you are. So if you're thinking about making a move to the Middle Tennessee area, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. I do have a free Nashville relocation guide down below. You just click the link to be able to download it. If you're ready to start the conversation, I also have a link below to book a Zoom call with me so we can start to talk about where you're looking and start to narrow in your search of what's the best fit for you and your family. I am always happy to have a conversation if you are considering making a move to the Williamson County area. Again, my name is Caitlin Martin. I'll see you next time.